Let me tell you what I'm sensing as I sit with the energy around you right now. There's this very specific emotional atmosphere that comes up, and it's something I want to describe carefully, because I think it's been misnamed in your life for a long time. It doesn't feel like a big, sweeping love story. It doesn't feel tragic or broken in an obvious way. What I'm actually getting is something subtler than that. Something warmer, and in some ways, more confusing because of how warm it is. I'm picking up on a connection, and for some of you, this is current, and for others, this is something you've been processing, maybe even for months, and this connection had a very particular quality to it. There was genuine curiosity between you and this person. Not the kind of curiosity that's performative or surface level. It went deeper than that. You were actually interested in each other. There was something about the way this person engaged with you, the questions they asked, maybe, or the way they paid attention when you spoke, that made you feel like you were being seen in a way you hadn't been for a while. And I want to pause there, because I think that detail is important. You felt seen. Now, keep that in the back of your mind, because we're going to come back to it. As I continue reading the energy here, what I notice is that this connection had a real sweetness to it in the beginning. I don't want to be dismissive of that. Whatever this was, and it looks different for everyone receiving this, there was something genuinely tender about how it started. A soft, romantic undertone that felt almost unexpected. Like you weren't entirely prepared for it to feel the way it did. Some of you may have tried to talk yourself out of it at first. Maybe you told yourself it was nothing. Maybe you said things like, I'm probably reading into it, or this isn't the right time, or I shouldn't get attached to this. And yet the feeling stayed. It stayed because it wasn't just attraction. It was recognition. That very specific feeling of recognizing something in another person that resonates with something in you. The energy around this feels like long conversations that happened almost by accident. Moments of connection that neither of you seemed to plan for but both of you leaned into. Small things. The way a message arrived at exactly the right moment. The way time seemed to stretch when you were together, or when you were talking, as if neither of you really wanted to be anywhere else. I'm hearing something like, this felt like a breath of fresh air. And for some of you, that's actually the problem. Because here's where the energy starts to shift, and I want to be honest with you about what I'm sensing. This connection, as real as it felt, also had something else in it. Something that was easy to overlook at first, because the warmth of it was so present. But as I sit with this longer, I'm beginning to feel the weight of something that wasn't quite balanced. There was a moment, and I think many of you know exactly the moment I'm talking about, where something shifted. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a fight or a clear turning point. It was more like, one day the energy between you changed, and you noticed it before you could explain it. The dynamic that had felt so easy started to feel slightly effortful. Like you were the one carrying something that should have been shared. This is interesting, because as I read this, I'm noticing that the shift didn't happen because the feelings went away. For you, they didn't. That's actually one of the most confusing parts of all this. You still felt the connection. You still cared. And so you stayed in it, you kept showing up, kept trying, kept making space, because the foundation of what you'd built together felt real to you, and you didn't want to throw that away. But I want to ask you something. When you look back at that period, when things started to feel uneven, what were you actually holding on to? Was it the love itself, or was it the way you felt when things were good? Was it the person, or was it that feeling of being seen that came with them in the beginning? Take a moment with that. You don't have to answer it right now. This is a collective reading, and I know everyone's situation looks different. But there's a shared thread running through the energy today, and that thread has to do with the difference between loving someone and needing the way someone made you feel. And I don't say that to diminish what you experienced. I say it because I think your heart has been carrying both of those things at the same time, and it's exhausting to hold them together when they've started pulling in different directions. The energy I'm getting now feels like someone who gave more than they received. Not because you were weak, or naive, or didn't know better, but because you're the kind of person who shows up fully. You don't half-heartedly invest in people. When you care about someone, they get the real version of you, your attention, your energy, your patience, your consideration. And for a while, that felt reciprocated. But at some point, there was a gap. A quiet, growing gap between what you were offering and what was coming back to you. And you felt it. Of course you felt it. But here's what I think happened, and see if this resonates. Instead of addressing it directly, you adjusted. You made yourself smaller in certain moments to avoid conflict. Or you made yourself busier, more accommodating, more forgiving. You told yourself things like, they're going through a lot, or this is just a rough patch, or I don't want to make a big deal out of something that might just be in my head. You're not imagining this energy. Let me tell you something about the period of time I'm reading right now, because there's something important happening beneath the surface. Even while all of this was unfolding, even while you were adjusting and accommodating and wondering, something else was happening inside you. Quietly. Without you fully realizing it. You were taking notes. Not literally. But emotionally, you were beginning to document things. The times you reached out and didn't get a real response. The moments where you felt like an afterthought when you were used to feeling like a priority. The way certain interactions left you feeling strangely hollow, when they used to leave you feeling full. You weren't cataloging these things with the intention of building a case. You were doing it almost involuntarily, because some part of you, some wise, deeply intuitive part of you that had been patient for a very long time, was starting to ask a question your conscious mind wasn't quite ready to voice yet. The question wasn't whether this person loved you. The question was, how do I actually feel when I'm with them? This is where the energy gets really layered, and I want to sit here for a moment because I feel like this is the core of what's being revealed today. There's something almost paradoxical about what I'm seeing. On one level, this connection had real warmth. Real curiosity, real tenderness, real moments of genuine closeness. I don't want to erase that. And I don't think you want to erase it either, because part of you still honors it, and I think that's actually a beautiful thing about you. But on another level, this connection also carried something that was quietly costing you. Not in a dramatic way. In that slow, subtle way where you don't notice the cost until you add it all up. And I feel like something has recently happened, or is in the process of happening right now, where you are beginning to add it all up. At first it felt like grief. Like you were losing something. And in some ways, maybe you are. But as I stay with this energy longer, it begins to feel less like loss and more like clarity. Like a fog is lifting. And the feeling underneath the fog isn't devastation. It's something closer to relief. Mixed with a little bit of anger, maybe. And underneath the anger, something even quieter, a kind of dignity reasserting itself. Because you are beginning to understand something about yourself. I'm hearing something like, the love was real. But the love was never the reason you stayed as long as you did. And that might be an uncomfortable sentence to sit with. So let me soften it a little. The love was part of it. The genuine connection, the curiosity, the softness of those early moments, all of that contributed to your investment in this. But what really kept you there, what made it hard to walk away even when things started to feel off, was something more personal than love. It was the way this person made you feel about yourself when things were good. When they were engaged with you, when they were curious about you, when that soft romantic energy was present and mutual, you felt a certain way about yourself. You felt interesting. You felt worthy of someone's full attention. You felt like the person they chose to invest their time and care in. And that feeling, that particular feeling, can be incredibly hard to give up, even when the behavior that creates it becomes inconsistent. Even when you have to work harder and harder to get back to a feeling that used to come easily. Have you noticed this pattern in your life? Not just in this connection, but perhaps in others before it? I want to be very gentle here, because I'm not here to make you feel like something was wrong with you for needing that feeling. That need is deeply human. We all want to feel chosen. We all want to feel like someone finds us worth showing up for. That's not weakness. That's just being alive and wanting connection. But there's a maturity that's beginning to emerge in your energy right now, and I can feel it clearly, a maturity that's asking a harder question. Not, why did they pull back, or what did I do wrong, or even, do they still love me? The question that's rising to the surface now is something more self-directed. Something more honest. Did I love them, or did I love who I became around them when things were at their best? And is that enough of a reason to keep pouring my energy into someone who can no longer consistently offer me that? This is a collective reading, so I want to acknowledge that the answers to those questions are going to be different for everyone here. For some of you, this is about a romantic connection. For others, it might be a friendship, or even a family dynamic. But the emotional pattern is the same, and I think that's why you're all drawn to this reading today. Because this pattern, this particular cycle of warmth and inconsistency, of feeling seen and then feeling invisible, of holding on not because things are good but because they were good, and you believe they could be again, that pattern is something many of us have lived inside of for far longer than we should have. And something is shifting. Something has been quietly shifting behind the scenes for a while now, actually. I don't think this is a sudden realization for you. I think this is a realization that's been building slowly, and it's only now reaching the surface in a way that feels undeniable. Let me tell you what I feel coming through for the other person in this dynamic, because their energy is also present here. There's something interesting happening with them. I don't want to paint them as a villain in this story, because the energy I'm getting isn't malicious. It's more complicated than that. There's a sense that they have been carrying their own internal conflict around this connection. Like they've wanted more from it, or from themselves, and haven't quite known how to bridge the gap between what they feel and what they're able to offer. What I'm sensing is that they are beginning to notice the absence of you. Not the version of you that adjusted and accommodated, but the real you. The one who stopped showing up as fully as you used to, because something in you started to protect itself. They can feel that difference. And it's creating a kind of dissonance in them that they're only now starting to reckon with. I'm getting a sense of them reflecting. Replaying things. There's an energy of someone who's been moving through the world somewhat disconnected from the emotional weight of a situation, and then suddenly, something makes it land. Something makes the reality of it feel real in a way it didn't before. Whether that leads to anything changing is a separate question. And I don't want to make you promises about their behavior, because that's not within my reach to tell you. But what I can tell you is that the energy I feel in your corner is not the energy of someone who needs to wait around to find out. Because you're changing. And I don't mean changing in a way that's reactive or dramatic or fueled by anger, though the anger is valid, and if you're feeling it, let yourself feel it. I mean changing in a way that's rooted in something deeper. In a growing understanding of your own worth that doesn't depend on any single person's reflection of it back at you. There's something grounding happening in your energy. Like you're getting your footing back. Like you're remembering things about yourself that you may have set aside while you were busy focusing on this connection. Your interests. Your instincts. Your time, and what you actually want to fill it with. And that, to me, feels like the real turning point here. Not the conversation you may or may not have with them. Not whether they come back, or reach out, or say the right thing. The turning point is internal. It's the moment, and I think you're very close to it, if not already inside it, where you stop measuring your value by how they choose to treat you on any given day. I want to say something else, because I'm feeling it very strongly and I think it needs to be said clearly. You were never too much. You were never too emotional, too present, too invested. Those aren't flaws. Those are the parts of you that make real connection possible. The problem was never your capacity to love or to care. The problem was that those qualities were placed in a dynamic that couldn't consistently hold them. That's not a character flaw. That's just a mismatch. And sometimes the most loving thing we can do for ourselves is acknowledge the mismatch before we pour so much of ourselves into something that we lose the thread of who we actually are. I'm hearing something like, the universe is not asking you to love less. It's asking you to love yourself first, and from that place, to love others. There's one more layer I want to touch on before I bring this reading to a close, because I feel it hovering in the energy and I don't want to leave without addressing it. Some of you, and you'll know if this is you, are holding a kind of hope. Not a loud, desperate hope. A quiet one. A small, persistent flame that hasn't gone out even as you've started to see things more clearly. And you might be wondering if that hope is foolish. If you should extinguish it so that you can move forward without looking back. I want to tell you something about that hope. Don't be ashamed of it. The hope isn't a weakness. It's actually evidence of how genuinely you loved. Of how real this was to you. And that matters. It speaks well of you. But I would gently invite you to examine what exactly you're hoping for, because I think the answer to that question has shifted recently, even if you haven't articulated it yet. A few months ago, maybe the hope was that things would go back to how they were. That the soft, curious, romantic energy of the beginning would return and be sustained. But I wonder if, somewhere in the quiet honesty of your own heart, what you're actually hoping for now is something different. Something bigger. Maybe the hope is just for yourself. For the version of you that knows your worth and doesn't negotiate it away. For a future where you feel that sense of being truly seen not as something dependent on one person's mood or availability, but as something that lives in you, that you carry with you, that you eventually share with someone who meets you fully, consistently, and without you having to work so hard to feel it. That hope is worth keeping.